But wanted to throw a few pictures up here just to kind of, just get our minds to thinking about the trip that he took. So, as we learned last week, Jacob has decided to leave Laban, and he is now returning to his home country. But he kind of left in a clandestine way, didn't he? He kind of took off, in a clandestine way, trying to get out of there. And of course, Laban pursued him, just like we talked about. But after their mutual agreement, Jacob resumed his journey to Canaan. So, Christy, I'm going to get you to just go ahead and look at Genesis 28:15 and hold your spot there. Carly, will you go ahead with verse 1 and 2?
Mm-hmm. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. Boy, ain't that word.
Yeah, everybody's got different versions on how they say it, Mahanaim or whatever you want to call it. But
Mahanaim.
yeah, it's a different one, But just imagine yourself, in Jacob's position. You've essentially been held hostage by your father-in-law for 20 years now? He's been there for quite a while. Got tricked in the first marriage, and of course had the second marriage and all that. You've been tricked to do the bidding of your father-in-law, and you've been doing that for 20 years, and now you're finally free from his stronghold. I can only imagine the joy and freedom that he probably felt as he headed home. But of course, there's also a little bit of apprehension, ain't there? Hey, something possibly going to happen once he starts heading back because of the trickery he's done to his brother. He pretty much stole Esau's birthright, as we saw a while back ago. But God kept his promise to Jacob. What does it say in 28:15?
And behold, I am with thee, and will keep thee in all places whither thou goest, and we will bring thee again into this land, for I will not leave thee until I have done that which I have spoken to thee of.
So it wasn't the 4 chapters ago. God promised him, I'm going to go with you there, and I'm bringing you back. And he always keeps his promise. So he's on his way back to his homeland, and a band of angels have come to join him. Notice that he called the place Mahanaim, which means 2 camps. Multiple thoughts and theories are based on this 2-camp name that was given to this place. Some theologians have said it was based on the angels being one camp and the family of Jacob being another camp. Some of them were saying that it was because, if we look on in verse 7, where he split the groups in half to prevent them all from being killed, that's why it was named 2 camps. Some also believe that the name, that it was named because there were 2 angel bands, one that protected him from the rear, from Laban, and one that protected him from the front, Esau. Either way, that's what the word Mahanaim means. It's 2 camps. And, but there's also something a little bit interesting about that name, having 2 camps. If you look at where archaeologists believe Mahanaim was located at, so this area is now known as Talul Ede Dehab, is what it's called. I know that's quite a long name and a funny name, or whatever you want to call it. But the Talul Dehab, Jordan, are 2 adjacent tails or hills in the Zarco River Valley. So notice you got the 2 hills here. So his travel was through in between the 2 hills where he went. So that's how his travel was. So I thought it's kind of funny that Mahanaim is 2 camps, but it's right there where 2 hills are. And like I said, it's 2 adjacent tails or hills in the Zarco River Valley, an affluent of the Jordan Valley, about an hour's drive northwest of Jordan's capital city, Amman. Looking at the topographical map, you can see the 2 hills that the name refers to. Now, we talked about the Mahanaim meaning 2 camps and Talul Dehab meaning 2 hills. Like I said, I find it as a coincidence. I could not find it stated nowhere, but, I got to thinking about that. It could be possible that Jacob was in the valley between the 2 hills and the 2 angel bands. I don't know, but that was a thought too that kind of ran through my mind while I was sitting there studying it. And they had their tents up there protecting him from front to back. So you can see, this is kind of a shrunk in version, but you can see those two dots are actually the heels that are there. And you can see the dotted line where they believe his journey went through in between the two heels. So that's where that is at in the Zarco River Valley. So we'll find out a little bit later that the River Jabbok is actually known as the Zarco River now. That's what the name of the river is. So we'll look at that here in just a second. Can somebody get verses 3 through 5?
Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother, to the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall you speak unto my lord Esau, thy servant Jacob, saying thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants. And I have sent to tell my lord that I may find grace in thy sight.
So of course, like any smart person, Jacob sends out a group to meet his brother. Essentially, he's trying to get the feel of it. He's trying to see what the tone is and everything else. But he also wants to send a message to Esau saying, hey, look, I ain't coming back to get anything. I don't want nothing. I'm not seeking anything from you. I don't want the inheritance. I don't want nothing. Essentially, he's letting God play it out. He's wanting Esau to know that I'm not here for nothing. All I'm looking for is for grace for what I've done 20 years ago. That's all I'm looking for. Jacob didn't need anything Esau had. Jacob had amassed quite a bit of wealth with everything that he had. He let Esau know that he doesn't seek any inheritance because he has already amassed a fortune while he is gone. So he didn't need anything. All he wanted was grace. And a lot of times that's what we're looking for, is a little bit of grace when we've wronged somebody. And that's what we search for. That's what we try to get. Amy, can you get 6 through 8?
And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and also he cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape.
Notice there in verse 7, like we talked about, he split them into 2 bands, or the 2 camps. So like I said, I don't know if that's why they named it Mahanaim, or because of the hills, or because of the angels. Either way, it's named after 2 camps. But of course, like it says here, the servants have returned. They quickly let Jacob know, hey, Esau's headed this way, and he got 400 people. He's got a crowd, and he's got a little bit of fire in his eyes. He ain't a bit happy. Jacob could have easily passed to the north or south to get back to his home country. And that's what a lot of people probably would have tried to do, go just skirt around him and keep on trucking back home. But he chose to go through Seir, where Esau was, out of respect. Again, he's looking for grace. He don't want to fight. He's looking for somebody to say, I appreciate you apologizing. It's okay. We'll let it go. It is always good to seek grace from those you have wronged, especially if they're mightier than you. Esau could wipe them out in a heartbeat. He's got plenty of men. I mean, you got to look. Esau was a fighter. Jacob wasn't no fighter. Esau was good with archery. Esau hunted. He knew what to do. Jacob didn't do all that stuff. But he's looking for a little bit of grace. Sometimes an act of civility goes a long way to change the tide of your relationships. All you have to do is, if I'm wrong Cynthia, I should be going up to her and apologize, instead of letting that fire build up in her and anger. Although Jacob is submitting to Esau by calling him Lord and himself a servant, he is quick to realize that a man scorned is not soon to forget what has happened. How easily are we to forget when somebody does us wrong? Kind of hard to do, ain't it?
Yeah.
Very hard to do. I still think about 2 or 3 times right in the back of my head that I still hold a little biting of a tongue about, and a little bit of teeth grinding about. I know A lot of us do at times. I mean, I know the preacher held an axe to grind for quite a while,
Years.
for years. But how much of a relief was it when you let it go?
That's right. I was free. Situation didn't change, but I was set free.
Yeah.
And I forgave.
And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Esau was ready for war. His group, like I said, could have easily been killed. Him and all that were with Jacob, and Jacob knew it. Out of fear for his family, he split them up, not for fight, but for flight. A lot of times what warriors will do, they'll split up in two different groups to attack from two different sides. Jacob wasn't doing that to fight. Jacob was doing it to flee, where they could, I guess, confuse them, whatever they needed to do, but they split them up to half flight and get out of there. But one thing important that Jacob was willing to do, and we'll see even more a little bit later on, he is willing to give himself up for the sake of his family. Let the kids go, let the women go, take me. It was my fault. I was the one that did it. Cindy, can you get verses 9 through 12?
And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saith unto me, return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I pass over the Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau his brother.
So, Lord, I'm only doing what you said. You told me to go home. I'm only doing what you said. You got to protect. Please protect. Please help me in my time of need. Salvation is only one prayer away. It's only one prayer away. Notice in verse 10, he starts off with how undeserving he is. Isn't that the way we should all come to God? How undeserving we are of what he's given us, what he's blessed us with, and what he's offering. You know, somebody said, you'll hear people say, well, they're trying to offer you the world. God ain't offering me the world. He's offering me a whole lot more than that. And you can't even touch it. He continues with the blessings that God has already bestowed on him. You know, God, I crossed Jordan alone. I went that by myself, but now I return with great blessings. And then he asked for salvation. He needs God to help finish his journey like we do. We can't finish this journey alone. Ain't no way possible. And Jacob can't finish this journey alone. You think he's going to stand against Esau? No. Ain't going to happen. Doesn't matter what he offers. He ain't going to be able to change Esau's mind without God's help. Without God's help. Tony, if you'll look up Proverbs 18:16 for me and hold it right there. Preacher, will you get 13 through 21?
And he lodged there that same night, and took of that which came to his hand a present for Esau's brothers. 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine or cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses, 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, pass over before me, and put a space between drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee? Then shalt thou say, they be thy servant Jacob's, and it is a present sent unto my lord Esau. And behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third and all that followed the drove, saying, on this matter shall you speak unto Esau when you find him. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. But he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I'll see his face, peradventure he will accept me. So went the present over before him and lodged, and himself lodged that night in the country.
So Jacob decides to send his payment gift at different intervals. That's a very strategic move, very good move, very smart move. This is a calculated move that Jacob has done. If his first offering is not accepted and or slain, he knows that he will not be able to meet with Esau and he must flee from him. You're only giving up a little bit right here to see how it's going to go and give up a little bit more. It's a very calculated move. And with each subsequent gift, the same message is repeated. He's saying the same thing. It's almost like he's trying to, I'm telling you, Jacob ain't trying to do you no harm. Jacob ain't trying to do you no harm. Every time somebody can, Jacob ain't trying to do you no harm. He don't want your money. He's offering you this. He's got all he needs. So the same message is repeated to help Esau change his mind. We must understand that even though Esau's anger appears to be unquenchable, Jacob never knows unless he tries. He'll never know unless he tries. Keep 18:6.
A man's gift maketh room for him and bringeth him before great men.
A man's gift can bring him before great men. But like I said, Jacob will never know unless he tries. And that goes for us today. We'll never know unless we try. We have no idea what can be accomplished unless we try. Michael Jordan missed how many thousands of shots, but he kept trying. You'll never get John to come to church. How do you know unless you try? You'll never get old so-and-so up the road here to come to church. How do you know? Unless you try. Why, you'll never get that little church off the ground. They'll never come back after the COVID. How do you know, preacher?
Gotta try.
Gotta try. Gotta keep digging.
That's right.
It's not all about saying, all right, just bring it to me. And if it ain't done the first day, give up. No, gotta keep going. Gotta keep digging. Terry, can you get 22 and 23?
And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook and sent over that he had.
So Jacob sends the rest of the family over the brook and he stays by himself. Whether he sees this as a time of prayer alone or whether he sends them across for protection in case Esau comes after just him, whatever the case may be, he sends them across, but he stays. He stays right there. And that's actually a real picture of the Zarco River right now. I have no idea if that's where he crossed. I don't know. It looks like a pretty place to cross. But that's where the River Jabbok is now, known as the Zarco River. So he sends his family on across and he stays there. I would bet, he done it for both reasons, to stay over there and pray, but also to protect him so Esau come after him and not his family. Gets him kind of separated away from him, which I can completely understand. But like I said, this is the Zarco River now. Can somebody get 24 through 30 for me?
And Jacob was left alone, there wrestling the lamb with him until the break of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, and the hall of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved.
So now Jacob wrestles with a man, which, as we know, is actually an angel, possibly even experienced the pre-incarnate Christ. Not absolutely sure. It don't specifically say, but that's a pretty good bet, because the place is named tonight, which means the face of God. You know, we've seen that they've changed his name from Jacob, which, is supplanter, deceiver, heel catcher, to Israel, which may God prevail. So there's been a change in his life here, quite a big change in his life here. So either way, Jacob believes he has seen God face to face since he called that area Peniel. Looking back at the map, you'll see that where it says Dahab, that's pretty much where Peniel was. That's the area where they believe Peniel was. And it was later known as Penuel. So it's in the Bible more than once. And we'll find that out. The western of the Twin Hills, this is from historians. The western of the Twin Hills, known as Tal Adu Dahab al-Garbi, also believed to be the location of Peniel, was populated at least from the Bronze Age to late antiquity. And a beginning of settlement in the Neolithic period is also possible. Some historians believe that the ancient building sites were torn down by earthquakes, but there is a little bit different possible answer found in the Bible. Looking at Judges 8, and I'll read this right quick. And the men of Ephraim said unto him, why hast thou served us thus, that thou calledest not, when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply. And he said unto them, what have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abizar? God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison to you? Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that. And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and 300 men that were with him, faint yet pursuing them. And he said unto the men of Succoth, which is actually over on that far side, probably another 15 miles when he was heading that way. Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian. And the princes of Succoth said, are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thy hands, that we should give bread unto thine enemy? And Gideon said, therefore, when the Lord hath delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and the briars. So pretty much they told him, we ain't giving you nothing. So Gideon is pretty mad. So he goes on and travels through, and he went up to thence to Penuel, and spake unto them likewise. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him. And he spake unto the men of Penuel, saying, when I come again in peace, I will break down this tower. In verse 17, he goes on, Gideon, when he comes back after he wins against those two kings, he beats down entire Penuel and slew the men of the city. So he come back with a vengeance. You know, historians believe that earthquakes tore all that down. If it's the same area and what it says in the Bible, then Gideon's one to jerk that down. He tore it to pieces. He broke it up. So going on back to our story, the angel could have easily dispatched Jacob with a flick of finger. It'd been easy. Wouldn't have been no sweat or a wave of the hand. I believe he didn't do it because he wanted to see how bad Jacob wanted God's favor. And that's the thing, how bad do we want God's favor? Are we willing to give up, or are we willing to fight? The angel even displaced his hip joint, but Jacob continued to fight. How much are you willing to fight for what you believe in? Are we going to give up? or are we gonna keep on fighting? And when the pain gets a little bad, are we gonna give up? Or are we gonna keep on fighting? Or when things get a little bit rough, are we gonna say it's not worth it? Or are we gonna keep on fighting? If we're doing it for God, we ought to keep on fighting.
Right.
Keep on battling. So on the way to church Sunday, there was a story that brought to mind something I heard years ago about this gentleman that Tammy and I heard about on the radio as we come. So does anybody know this gentleman? What's his name, preacher? Can you remember?
Yeah.
I told the preacher his name.
2 or
too.
3 times.
He said he wasn't gonna look it up, but I don't think he remembered the guy's name.
I did not.
This is Hiru Anoda. So he was born March 19th, 1922 in Kanen, Wakayama, Japan. Anoda joined the Japanese Army in 1942 and was singled out for specialized training at the Nakano School, Japan's primary training center for military intelligence operations. As a student, Anoda studied guerrilla warfare, philosophy, history, martial arts, propaganda, and covert operations. For such training that he got, it's going to be key to his survival. So we talked about Jacob fighting with an angel, even through the pain, through everything else, he kept going. Let's talk a little bit about Hiru, however you want to say it. So on February 28, 1945, American forces landed on a small strategic Philippine island known as Lubang. Mayor Yoshima Taniguchi gave orders to Lieutenant Anoda and his 3 men to stand and fight no matter what, and whether it be 3 years or 5 years, we'll come back to get you. We're coming back. It may be 3 years, maybe 5, but we're coming back. For years, Lieutenant Anoda lived and fought in the jungles of Lubang. His group had multiple skirmishes with local tribes, thinking they were in cahoots with the Americans. But this is going on for years. One enlisted man surrendered to the Americans in 1950, and another 2 were killed by island police searching for renegades, one in 54 and the other in 1972. Officially declared dead in 1959, Anoda was tracked down by Japanese student Norio Suzuki in February of 1974. Anoda still refused to surrender, telling Suzuki that he would not return home until he received official orders. I was told to stay here. I'm not giving up until somebody in command tells me we're done. I'm gonna keep fighting. Suzuki returned that spring, this time flanked by a Japanese delegation, the lieutenant's brother, and Taniguchi, which was his original guy that told him to stay there. After nearly 3 decades on the island of Lubang, Anoda was convinced to surrender. Years. He was given one order. He was told once, you stay here and fight until I come back to get you. The whole time. Like we talked about, Jacob was given the name Israel, which means prevail with God. As we look at 31 and 32, I'll go ahead and read it right quick. As he passed over Peniel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of thy thigh until this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrunk. So it is believed that Jacob limped until his death. He pretty much limped until his death. He kept the pain with him. He kept it with him the whole time. Question for us, for me, I'll say it for me, I don't know about anybody else. Do I have the fortitude of Jacob? Even though my hip is out of joint, will I continue to fight for what I believe in? Do I have the stamina of Mr. Anoda there? One time he was told, stand and fight until I come back to get you, and I'll be there. Or we continue our fight until we receive word from those in command or from God that we are done. Why are we so easily beset by pain and time that we will give up on where God has sent us and what he has commanded us to do? Like Jacob and Anoda, we must fight through the pain no matter how long, and finish the race that is before us.
Thank you, brother.
Anybody got any thoughts or additions?
That's good.